Hello everyone, this is Logan, and welcome to the 13th episode of Tech Time. And as you might be able to tell, I finally switched microphones after 13 episodes. Basically, long story short, I got this free, it looked kinda cheap, I did a quick test recording and it sounded relatively good for something I thought would be cheap and crap. Plus, not to mention, it has a little stand on it, so you don't have to hear that weird sound that you always heard with the last microphone. Anyway, a lot has happened this week, let's cover it. Remember last week when I went over WWDC and what to expect there? Well, pretty much everything I said there happened, except for one thing, but I'll get to that in a bit. So I figured I would kind of do a part 2, just going over my impressions. And you know, it started out alright. They were talking about an app with, like, cars that ran on Bluetooth, and they could be detected by the iPad. Might be something kind of cool that I could buy and just show off to my friends. But then it went into OS X Mavericks. Now, I personally am a Windows user. In fact, I am recording this on a Windows XP machine right now, and I also have a Windows 8 machine downstairs. Now, I figured, alright, 10.9. This is going to be the one. This is what's going to be happening that will make me want to jump ship and switch from Windows to Mac. Or at least just create a Hackintosh or something like that. It did not. I mean, okay, so the improved speed. Alright, that's kind of nice. The Finder with tabs, I didn't really care. I don't know how many people even use the Finder. And, you know, there was a few other features. iBooks, not much of a bookworm. And, you know, it's interesting that Apple Maps was the biggest feature of Mavericks. I'm just going to tell you right now, that was probably the biggest feature that they hyped the most out of Mavericks. Apple Maps. So, just to reiterate, the worst part of iOS 6 is now the best part of OS X Mavericks. Pretty bad. The one feature that was absent in 10.9 that probably would have made me jump ship is Siri. Siri has always been kind of a novelty, because, I mean, you know, iOS, it's just so easy to navigate. We don't need Siri, and, you know, yeah, it's nice to talk to for a few minutes, but after a while, it just gets boring. And considering that a computer is a lot more complex than an iOS or even Android device, I would have probably, again, jumped ship if it had Siri, which it didn't, so I'm not jumping ship until maybe operating system 11. And then they went into talking about iOS 7, and I was just amazed at what I saw. In fact, I was so amazed that I even downloaded the beta for a short time before realizing it was an unstable piece of crap and restored back to 6.1.3. So, you know, the control center was kind of cool. The flat interface, I didn't really care for. I didn't like these sort of, you know, my first smartphone, let's buy the kids an iPod Touch, you know, that sort of design. It kind of looked a bit kid-friendly. I just kind of liked how iOS looked before. But, you know, it's okay. And, you know, it's also nice that they took a lot of features from jailbreaking. For example, they kind of had sort of like a folder enhancer thing where you can have unlimited folders. There was like an infinite tab thing in Safari. Control center was a bit like SB settings. And it worked overall quite nicely, in my opinion. So, overall, my final opinions, iOS 7, pretty good. OS X Mavericks, kind of disappointing, but I also kind of have the feeling that they're just hyping OS 11 just a bit more. And I think next year's WWDC, they are going to completely surprise us and just blow us out of the water. That's my prediction, anyway. Anyway, next thing. Say, do you like the Apple Store? Well, Windows is planning on doing something on a much smaller level. Introducing Windows Stores. Now, there are technically already Windows Stores. About 68 of them. Yeah. But the new Windows Stores are just going to take over the computer department in Best Buy. Which, I don't know if that means they're not going to sell Apple computers. I genuinely hope not. But it would still be kind of interesting to see the Windows Store thing. Now, Microsoft, on their website, said, well, unlike a lot of store-within-a-store concepts, this will actually be a department-level takeover within Best Buy stores. And they will be massive in size, up to 2,000 square feet in some locations. The other unique thing about the Windows Store is the people. There will be additional 1,200 staff on hand to provide a great customer experience, whether it's choosing the right PC or showing consumers how to stream Xbox music through their Surface. Finally, the online experience should be fantastic. We'll have a full online Windows Store experience that will mirror the in-store look and feel and offer a full range of Microsoft products, even those from other places in the Best Buy store. So, I genuinely don't know what to think. On one hand, it would be nice to have some people who actually know what they're talking about sell me a PC or an Xbox 360. But on the other hand, really, the entire computer department? So, aren't you kind of just doing what you did in 2000? By the way, if you're not familiar with that, they pretty much had the monopoly over PCs and Apple sued. So, yeah, I genuinely don't know what to think, but so far I'm not entirely in favor of this idea. But who knows? It could very well surprise me. Anyway, on to the last thing. You know how last week when I was talking about the Project Mojo, I briefly mentioned the Ouya, which was kind of like a direct competitor to it, even though none of them had been released yet? Well, I figured I'd go a bit more in-depth into the Ouya. Now, for those who are unaware, the Ouya is essentially an independently funded console that runs a cracked version of Android and software written in the Android code. Now, there is one major selling point about the Ouya. Every software that you can buy, no matter what it is, has a free trial version. It doesn't matter if the initial application is 99 cents or $50, it will always have a light or free trial version. Which could make me upgrade, because, you know, I do kind of like to try before I buy, but there's more to it. Even though they asked like $500,000 in the Kickstarter, it wasn't very well made. For example, the controller is kind of cheap, and so is the console. You know, it just kind of feels a bit cheaply made, but that's not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is selection, and as of now, there isn't very much of it. Now, they did just release their final version of the Ouya. The first version was just a thing that they gave to say thank you to the people who donated on Kickstarter, and with that, they did iron out some of the flaws. For example, they made the buttons not stick as easily, and there was some problem with some glue that seeped into the controllers on some machines that caused the right thumbstick to stick. And above all, they changed the interface and kind of polished it and also kind of made it a bit faster. So, I don't know which one I would like better. I guess I would have to see what they are both like when they're both released, but I would, if I had to pick between the two consoles, I'd probably go for the Project Mojo, just because it's a familiar interface, and, you know, you can play anything that's on the Google Play Store on your television. But if the Ouya does have decent software, it could possibly be pretty good, especially considering if the console's cheap enough. So anyway, that's all for this week. Stay tuned for next week.